Hey everyone, welcome in. We're going to get started here in just a minute. If you haven't already, please let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. I'm Leah Houston. I'm a senior campaign specialist here at DBT Labs, and I'm very excited to be kicking off today's event, Modernize Self-Service Analytics with DBT. Thanks for being here. All right, before we begin, I would like to talk to you about Coalesce, which is the premier analytics engineering conference. It's crafted by DBT Labs and it's coming up here in October. You can join us in person in Las Vegas or you can join us for Coalesce online. And Coalesce online is totally free. You can register with this QR code or we'll drop a link in the chat to register. But I hope that y'all can join us, especially for Coalesce in person in Las Vegas. It's a fantastic week. We have great sessions, workshops. It's a great opportunity to network with your peers. And it's just a ton of fun. I've been to Coalesce the past 2 years and an amazing time. So I hope y'all can join us in person in Las Vegas this year. Some housekeeping things. The Q&A tab. Please use the Q&A tab for all of your questions so a DBT product expert can find them and answer those for you. The chat, please continue to use the chat for banter. That's where you've been letting us know where you're joining us from today, and have some fun with us. Etiquette, please be kind to your fellow attendees and presenters. We want you to ask the tough questions, share feedback. We're glad that you're here, but let's keep it respectful and inclusive. Recording, we will send out the recording within 24 hours after today's event, so be on the lookout for that in your email inbox. And lastly, a survey. Please be on the lookout for the survey. We're going to launch the survey at the end of today's session. We'd love to know your feedback and how to improve these sessions for y'all in the future. Today's virtual event is part of our DBT Launch Showcase series. So episode 1, this was back in May. This was our 2025 DBT Launch Showcase. If you missed that one, it's now on demand. So we'll drop a link in the chat for you to watch that session later. Today is episode 2 in the series about modernizing self-service analytics with DBT. So thanks for being here for our second episode. Our third episode is coming up in July. It's going to be a deep dive on how DBT's MCP server enables reliable real-world use cases. You'll learn about how structured governed data is powering more trustworthy AI experiences. So we hope that y'all can join us for that session as well. And then last but not least, we have our final episode on the DBT Fusion engine that's coming up in August. So stay tuned for that. I know everyone's really excited for that one. So I hope you can join us for that. And I'm now going to pass things over to today's presenters to really kick things off. So Patrick and Rachel, take it away.
Thanks, Leah. Hey, folks, I am Patrick. I'm on the product team here at DBT Labs, and I am joined today by
Rachel Kurtz. I'm a services lead at InterWorks. And for those of you who don't know who InterWorks are, we're a data and analytics consulting firm based out of Oklahoma who is really just filled with a whole bunch of data nerds. We do everything from IT, data engineering, data science, and data analysis.
And so what are we here to talk about today? Is it like horses or data?
Well, I hope not, because I know nothing about horses. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so what we are here to actually talk about is self-service and self-service analytics. I feel like we've been talking about this for like decades. It hasn't worked yet. We're going to talk about why it hasn't worked yet. We're going to talk about why you should care and who should care. There are a lot of people involved in trying to create a self-service analytics project and environment, and so we're going to talk about who we need to design for. We'll cover how DBT is attempting to enable teams to collaborate without chaos in our cloud platform. We'll show you how that looks across a bunch of our new experiences, and then we'll leave you with some resources and next steps that you can take and do what you will with.
And don't worry, like the part where we're saying we're going to talk about how DBT helps you collaborate without chaos, that's going to answer the question of like, okay, so why hasn't self-service worked? That's going to say, how can we make it work? Right. So we're not just going to be all doom and gloom about this. We're going to say, these are the reasons why it hasn't worked, and here's how we can fix it.
Okay, but start us with some doom, start us with some gloom.
Start us with some doom a little bit. And yeah, just talking why it hasn't worked. Like we were saying at the beginning, I was saying at the beginning, we're an analytics consulting firm and a data consulting firm. So we've kind of seen a plethora of clients at various levels of data literacy and different technical abilities. And really something that's pretty consistent about it is it's the Wild West out there. Right. Like what's ending up happening is that analysts, once we're getting to that portion of it and are creating these reports, analysts are going to have to end up doing whatever they can to get to their answers. They're having to jump between tools, right? Sometimes they're visualizing it in one and then they're writing it in another. They're creating data in another, right? The copying logic from old queries, setting up
Like,
custom tables.
why is that happening?
It's just because it's just all over the place and just things are so very, very siloed. And just like the fact is, analysts are in one group and data engineers are in another, and they have just like various priorities that they need. So what ends up happening is the analysts end up having to do what they can. Data engineers are building the pipelines, right? And the analysts are building the dashboards, and rarely are they able to quite build together. They end up kind of talking at each other than talking with each other. And so when analysts don't understand what's upstream and engineers don't understand how the data is being consumed, that system breaks down. So it really is just this lack of communication between them and then just the conflicting priorities across them, right? Like data engineers, they're doing stuff for the entire company, right? So like their sprints are going for like 6, 7 months down until you're in the queue. And meanwhile, analyst teams, right? They're wanting that report to be done in 2 days. And so they don't have the time to necessarily get in that queue. I was working with one client where I was trying to work with their data engineering team to get to a table that was in a very particular data model set up with these right columns and all these joins and everything. And I was working with them and we understood what needed to happen, but it was something that was going to be created in 6 months because that was the next time they had. Whereas I was going to be done with the client work. My contract ended in a month. So I ended up having to make some like fake data to build the dashboard, to build the product, and then tell them how to switch it over once that data was available. And that's nobody's fault. It's just the fact that everybody's got different priorities. And then
Misaligned,
there's just like those gaps. Sorry?
misal- misaligned incentives. Like
Misaligned incentives. Yep.
the engineering team is incentivized by building core assets for the entire company in a well-governed way.
Yep.
And analytics teams within the business are incentivized by getting their job done as quickly as they can to serve the ultimate end consumer of their data. Like
Yeah.
that totally squares with what we see at DBT. Um,
Yeah.
we are embedded in so many engineering teams in so many different companies across so many different industries, and they use us to create these really high quality, well governed data mart assets. Um, but at the other end of that kind of spectrum, you've got these business users that have to use that data to make decisions, and they will come along and they'll say, well, that data is great, but like I need to see my own slice of it that's slightly
Mm-hmm.
different than what my engineering team has created. And they'll ask their engineering team to make that change for them, and they'll be like, go pound sand. Like my queue is 6 to 9 months long. Like I don't have time for
Yep.
your thing. I'm serving the entire company here. And so the analytics teams will go out and they'll use, these people aren't dumb. They'll use the tools that they have at their disposal, and they'll create Excel sheets, and they'll use data prep tools, and they'll like run things locally, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
use whatever they have at their disposal to get this job done. Um, and before long, like you used the term Wild West, like it's the Wild West. It's this
Yep.
daisy chain of processes that nobody has any visibility into. And there's data quality problems, there's data risk problems, there's cost problems, there's continuity problems. Like this situation isn't good for anybody. Like what's the worst you've ever seen this?
It's been pretty bad. Most of the times that I've seen it when it's been that bad is just a whole bunch of different SQL queries that random people are running here, there, and everywhere, and or Excels that people are just uploading. So like the trust in data is just gone because the way I define something in my Excel is different than the way that my coworker defined it in their Excel. But we're both building dashboards with that field in there. So it
Yeah.
just makes it really tough. Just having everybody have that Wild West aspect means that definitions are just all over the place.
So like whose problem is this? You know,
Everybody's.
we've got a bunch of different groups and teams operating in this model. Like, how do you How do you see the world at InterWorks? How do you see the different groups at InterWorks? Like when we think about the needs of our audience, like who do you think we should design for?
So I think it seems so silly to say, but it's everybody. Everybody should care about this. But like the thing is, everybody is a really big term, obviously. And even within that, we've
I can't
found,
work with everybody as a product manager. Like
yeah,
I need
everybody.
personas, I need definitions. I can't work with everybody.
Well, there's a few different, like almost buckets that we've seen. I call them buckets, but really think of it a little bit more of like a spectrum of sorts, where on one side you have the data engineers that we were talking about. Those are the ones that are, they're a little bit more on the technical side, right? They're skilled in SQL and other scripting languages. They're talking about the data pipelines. They're scalable, they're efficient, they're secure. They're the ones going out and really getting us data from all these disparate data sources so that we can utilize it. On the other side of that is the business user. So they're going to be generally on the more non-technical side of it. So they're still working with the data and getting it to be kind of in the shape that they want, but theirs is a slightly more simple data transformations. They're generally going to use user-friendly drag and drop interfaces as opposed to writing SQL themselves. And then there's the middle, which is where we're seeing a lot of people nowadays, is this power analyst, which you all at DBT have coined the phrase the analytics engineer. And so that's pretty much who we're talking about here. They're a power user in data. They generally are pretty good in Excel, Tableau, Power BI. A lot of them are also really good in SQL, and they're skilled at transforming large data sets, not just doing some simple data transformation. So it is a wide range and everybody kind of fits somewhere along this. Some here may be slightly in between data engineer and power analysts. They may be between power analyst and a business user, but these are generally the phrases we've come up with for our different personas.
What makes this hard is not only is it everybody, but like everybody doesn't call themselves the same thing everywhere. And so, as we've gone out and talked to dozens of companies and hundreds of analysts, we found that someone who calls themselves a business analyst over here behaves completely differently than someone who calls themselves a business analyst over there. Like, same thing for data analysts. Like, their jobs are different, their skills are different, the tools they use are different. Um, and so it's hard. It's hard as a product person to say like, well, who's your ideal user here? Because like the way they describe themselves can be completely different. So when you really kind of break down who we're designing this for and who we're expanding to, really just people. And these are people who maybe they know what questions they want to ask of their data, but they don't always know where to start. People who want answers fast without waiting on their engineering team. People that are trying to move quickly without breaking their company's governance policies. But who maybe aren't super comfortable writing a 1,000-line SQL statement. Maybe these people call themselves a data analyst. Maybe these people call themselves a business analyst, a business information analyst, a technical analyst, or an analytics engineer in training. But really, what we're trying to do is bring in kind of what you had on the left is the engineering teams and the kind of the more technical power analysts and enable them to collaborate with the people on the right, the business analysts, the less technical power analysts, and kind of getting everybody operating together under the same hood.
Most definitely. It's just, again, bringing it back to breaking down those silos, which is, I think, is a analogy that everybody has been using for the last 10, 15 years, but yet we've still not been able to
Trying. We're trying.
generally successfully do it. We've had some bridges here and there, but it's just trying to make it a little bit more. So in that, right, like in a lot of the conversations we've had with different people, right, like you'll have some quotes from analysts who are just saying like, I just want answer to the questions without waiting days for a new table or digging through undocumented SQL. And undocumented SQL might be from somebody like myself who really just was doing something really quickly and didn't think to document it and then is going back and forgetting what they were intending to do. But then you also conversely have data engineers who are like, I don't have time to drop everything every time there's an ad hoc request. So it does have to go into that queue. So it's like we basically, everybody has the same goal of trying to make it so that analysts can help themselves without breaking things.
It's that like that universal tension in every organization between being governed and empowerment. Like it's just this
Mhm.
pendulum that swings back and forth, and like you're always pissing somebody off somewhere along this pendulum. And so like no one's been able to strike the right balance and thread that needle yet. And so I'm excited about our attempt because I think we got something here. Okay, so this has been pretty doom and gloomy. You promised us some light.
Yeah.
What is like actually solving this problem look like?
So solving, yeah, we want to not just have it be doom and gloom. So it's just more of like, how do we fix this? How do we make it so that self-service can work? And how do we bring trust back into the self-service? And some of it is things that we've already been talking about here. The unifying language between teams, making it so that the analyst, the power analyst, the business user, the data engineer, that we're all speaking the same language so that when we're communicating, I'm able to communicate as an analyst what I want something to look like. The data engineer is able to understand what I'm asking for, as well as both of us are able to understand when it's something that I can do ad hoc, I can do on my own and self-service, and when it needs to be something that a data engineer has to put into the sprint queue. So just creating this common place for all of us to collaborate.
When you say language, do you mean like words, like word talking, or like technical language, like SQL? Like how do you think about bridging that gap?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So it's like it's just general language because we're creating a place in which business users and power analysts who may not have been privy to generally software best practices and data best practices, now we're all in the same location, right? Especially within DBT. So we're all having to communicate in that way and understand each other's priorities. So because we have a little bit more knowledge around data and the way the data is created and the transformations within it, we're able to communicate in a way between each other. So it is both just in like the tooling, but also the language and what we're asking for and like what the best practices are going from there.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And building trust in data, right? That's a big part of it. We've talked about silos. We also need to just like build the trust within that data because if everything is ad hoc, then everyone's making up their own definitions and we can't be positive that everybody's on the same page. So making it so that we're all together in a single place makes it so that we can actually trust the data that we are together creating.
And
And
so
then
that like is trust a thing that kind of naturally flows from speaking the same language, or how do you think about enabling an analyst to better trust data that's produced by an engineering team and kind of vice versa?
I think a lot of it does have to do with like the documentation and just like the governance behind it. Like I'll be able to trust it if I know where it's coming from, right? So in DBT, what you all have had for quite some time, right? The lineage. Be able to look into that into Explorer or Catalog and be able to see where is this data coming from? Well, how was it created? When was it created? Like I'm able to trust it a lot more than if it's just an Excel someone sent to me and they're like, believe me, it's what you want. And you're like, I don't know if I trust you, right? Like it's not anything to do with them. It's just human error exists. So being able to see some of this makes it so that you're just able to trust that data a little bit more, which is a big part of self-service. I'm not going to build a report on something I don't trust. So I will not have self-service if I can't do that. And then one of the other big phrases that I enjoy is that empowerment without compromise, basically trying to make it so that everybody can get to the data, feel empowered with the data without necessarily having to compromise their skill level, their technical level, or their time that they have, right? It may be that the business user does not have the time in their schedule to do a SQL Coursera course to learn how to write SQL within DBT. And it may be that the data engineers don't want to learn a new thing within DBT to like get to that point. But it's just making it so that everybody can still work together because you have what wherever your skill level is, you can work within there and still being able to work together and collaborate.
There's also like a bit there of the data engineering team doesn't have to compromise on governance now.
Yes.
So as we'll show you in a second with our new Canvas product, as an analyst, you can use a low code, no code drag and drop editor to build a new model, but still put it through the exact same approval workflows that your engineering teams used. And so whatever approval process you built, like that's the one you can send your analysts through. And so now you're empowering them to work at their own pace, but you're not compromising on the standards that you've set as an organization.
Yeah. And then finally for that, you really just have to like maximize your efficiency, right? Again, timing is a big thing. We're all very, very busy and trying to get to the insights as quickly as we can. So if we can do this as efficiently as possible, then even all the better. So having things like when we're going to be showing in a little bit, the insights to be able to understand in the ad hoc queries that you're doing, whether you're going down the right path or not, if things are looking the way you think they should, if you're calculating things the way you think you should, having insight into that as you're developing is just very important.
And that's traditionally that's been an impediment there has been the different tooling silos that teams have had to use. And so you'll go to one tool to discover data that you have at your disposal. You'll go to a different tool to actually run an evaluation query to see if it's the right data. You'll go to maybe a third tool to actually build like a hardened query to do your analysis and your insight, and then maybe like a fourth tool to persist that thing long term as a new data asset, and and maybe another one to do a visualization. And so like that's a difficult place to actually empower people without compromise. So the kind of conceptual model that we're trying to drive here at DBT is you still have your core data engineering centrally created assets. You still got your data marts, you've still got your gold copies. But now you've empowered your analyst teams, whether they're in marketing, whether they're in finance, whether they're in sales, wherever they are, to easily discover and reference those gold copy data sets. They can, in the tool and format of their choice, make edits to those things. They can modify those things. They can transform those gold copy assets for their own business purposes. They can do it within DBT, within our framework. And so now they can reuse existing assets without having to create brand new things. And now you, as the central data team, have full lineage and visibility into all of the downstream uses for the data that you've created. These analyst teams can reference each other's data sets rather than having to go back to a central pool and recreate them from scratch. And because this is DBT, everything these analyst teams do resolves down to SQL. These SQL statements can be version controlled, they can be audited, they can be governed, and you get documentation, you get lineage, you get freshness, you get quality, you get all of the things that DBT gives you out of the box with the experience. And so, this for us is really the pattern that we're trying to enable, is bringing these analyst teams together with the engineering teams to operate under this same shared framework. And the three experiences that we've launched 3 weeks ago in order to do this. Now, if you break down the journey of an analyst, it often starts with their boss or somebody pinging them with just that one quick question. How many new sales did we have last month? What was the result of some marketing campaign on new signups? And your first question is, okay, what data should I use to answer this question? We have expanded DBT Explorer and renamed it Catalog to reflect the fact that it is now a global search across all of your DBT projects. And for the first time, you can have DBT scan and index all of your Snowflake data warehouse assets, additional platforms coming soon, and make those things discoverable, understandable, trustable within this DBT catalog within our DBT framework.
And that is so, so very important because the amount of times that I've been at a client and seen that somehow accidentally through no fault of really anybody, there's 5 versions of the same table, right? Like there will be dim customer and then dim customers and then dim customer by quarter or something like that, right? Like there's
It's
all
like a
these different
V2.
things. Yeah, V2 kind of thing. And it's because like nobody realized that somebody else had already done that because there wasn't the view into it, the catalog into it, and understanding what data was already available. So everyone was trying to rebuild the wheel. So having something like this just makes it a lot easier.
Like it points you to the quote unquote good data as quickly as possible. Um, but you don't, you're an analyst, you're skeptical. You want to make sure it's the right data. You don't always trust the thing you're looking at until you actually get your hands on it and see what's inside. And so embedded in this new experience is our new DBT Insights product. And from there, you can run quick queries against data assets, whether they're built with DBT or existing in your data warehouse. You can create pretty sophisticated analyses. We use this internally on a daily basis to run metrics against our own product experiences. You can bookmark queries. If you think you're going to run something again and again and again, you can save those bookmarks with other people on your team in case you want to create the standard way of doing a lookup. Um, and then you can create visuals on top of this data very, very quickly so that you can validate the data, you can validate models, you can validate your query just in the course of doing your job within DBT in your workflow without having to tab switch. And then finally, oftentimes, maybe even most times, the new insight that an analyst creates has to be materialized as a new asset, a table, a view, or what have you. And oftentimes, people that are building these things aren't super skilled in SQL, or maybe they just don't want to write code that day. And so we've introduced DBT Canvas, and now generally available, as our low code, no code drag and drop editor. So with just a few clicks, a user of really any technical ability who knows the data can build out their own transformation without having to use code on the front end, yet still know that everything is resolving to code on the back end. Again, it can be audited, version controlled, governed, et cetera, because this is DBT and everything resolves down to SQL.
And let me tell you, this is the thing. When you guys announced it as an idea about a year ago, I was so excited. So it's been really a good time to play with it and understanding it a little bit more.
That's great because you're about to give a demo of it.
I am.
But before you do, I just have to call out because of the day that day and time that we're living in, both Insights and Canvas are powered by AI. And so we're excited to show you how, even if you don't want to use SQL, even if you don't want to use drag and drop, you can use natural language to get your job done.
Yeah. And so I'm excited to see you demo those. But first, we're going to start with me demoing DBT Canvas, and then we'll hand it on over to Patrick. So let's get into it. So like we were just saying, there is a way to make self-service analytics work. And one of the major themes that we were talking about is trying to find it so that everybody can work together in an efficient manner on the data. So to go back to a phrase that we've probably all heard very much, it's talking about how do we break down the silos? How do we bridge the gaps, right? How do we make it so that everybody from a data engineer to a power user, or power analyst, analytics engineer, data analyst, business user, whatever it is, how can we all come together and have a common language, a common space, a common understanding, and all work together towards that common goal? And DBT Canvas is one of the new features within DBT that is going to be really helpful in meeting that goal. Like Patrick was saying, DBT Canvas is the no/low code drag and drop tooling within DBT Cloud. And I'm really excited to demo it for you all today. So let's say that I work for a company, I'm a data analyst at a company, and I have been tasked with the job of trying to do some cohort analysis. I need to look at our customers and start to kind of put them together into different groupings to understand what their purchase history is like, what kind of advertisements work for them, right? I want to get all of that information to try to then predict what they're going to buy, or maybe figure out what I need to add, like advertise to them to keep them coming back. So I know that I need to have a single data model, data table, basically, that has all of this information in it that I want to use. And in our data sources, I know that in our Snowflake, we've got at least two tables that I'm going to need. One is information about our customer base, and another one is information on historical orders and basically order history at this point. So I know I need to bring these together into a single data table. And I don't necessarily want to just go in and start typing SQL. I'm more of a visual person myself. So being able to just kind of like bring things in and see how things are working and like see how things join and how they're moving through the pipeline is really helpful to me. So this is where I can use DBT Canvas, which we're looking at right now. You can see within DBT Canvas, we've got a couple of options up at the top. One is input and output, right? Those make sense as they should. You're inputting your data, you're outputting your data. And then there's this other grouping that's called transform. And right, this is all of the different ways in which we can transform our data from within DBT. Joins, unions, creating a formula on it, doing aggregates, and a couple of different things. So I'm really excited to just start going in. So I know that I need to input data, right? That's the start of every project. So I can click on input, and I can drag and drop this in, and immediately two of these little tools come up. One of which is inputting and one is outputting, because obviously if you're creating a model or you're creating a table, you're going to want to decide how do you want to output that. So the first thing I need to do is choose a model. When I click on choose a model, you can see that it is all of the tables that I have at my disposal within this project. So I see right here, I see one that's called stage orders. So I can click on that and I can get some information. This is information about that table. So I can determine, is this the one that I actually want before I actually select it? So I know it has order ID, customer ID, order date, and then this crazy status one that has a whole bunch of different options within like the status of that order. So I say, yep, this is what I want to do. So I'm going to select that model. And I can see here that I've got my output columns and I can reorganize from within this, right? I can reorganize my columns. I can get rid of a column if I want. See, I can subtract it or add it, whatever you might want to do. And then you can see a little bit of information. I've got 4 columns, and while this is loading, it's just basically going to give me a little preview of the data showing me, here we go. This is just a quick little preview of the data that I have right now with order ID, customer ID, order date, and status. So without even necessarily having run anything or do anything, I can get a quick little visual representation of this. Remember, one of the things we're talking about is not only do people need to come together to work it, but it needs to be efficient. And for me, having these moments, having these little previews along the way is really, really helpful in my development to make sure that I'm doing what I want to be doing and making sure that the formulas I'm creating or the date tables I'm connecting to are looking the way I think they should. So I've got that. Love that. And I can do close edit mode just to kind of shrink that. Can always go back to it, right? And click on that the little pencil to go around. I do realize that I want to change this model name. Calling it Untitled 2 is maybe not the best thing. So I'm going to change this and say I'm just going to say int data for cohort analysis. And you can change where you want that to go. So the file path. So where do I want this to go? So you can see I've got a lot of different folders within my source, within my DBT project. So I'm just going to put it in my marts. And similarly, you can see what are the tables that are coming in and what is going to be output, as well as that little preview down at the bottom. I'm going to close that edit mode again. And now I know that it might be that I want to go in and I want to change things around. Perhaps for some reason, I want to make it so that everything that when we were seeing this, just going to click on this little edit mode so we can see that information again, right? Everything within this status, most of it says returned, completed, and things like that. But I see every once in a while there's something that's like return pending. But I know that I want to mark that actually as returned. So what I need to do is I want to actually transform my data. So anything that's coming out of this before it goes into the input, I can see this little plus. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to add an operator in between. And the thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a little formula. And I can configure that formula. So the expression that I want to do is case when status is like, and then return, then I want it to actually just say return. Else, give me the status that was already there. And then end. And then here, right, so there's my little expression. I can type this just like as just a normal SQL. You can also use your Jinja macros if you have those available to you. And here, this alias is what that new column is going to look like. So I'm going to say status cleaned. And what's great about this, again, talking about that efficiency and making sure I'm doing what I want to be doing, I can see that input, I have these 4 columns, and output, now I have this new status cleaned column. And then down here, I can actually click on preview while it's thinking about it, and I can see what is actually happening, right? So I can see that this status was returned and it's coming in as return. And then if I go down a little bit more, I should see that again. Yep, there we go. Return pending has become return as well. So this is just a great way for me able to see, like, am I doing the right thing with my formula? Is this what I want to be doing? You can also add as many columns and formulas as you want within this single place. You don't necessarily have to have like 5 different formula operators within your thing if you want to just do it all within one. So I can close my edit mode. You can always drag and drop, move these things around. You can also rename what each of these little sections are doing, which is also really helpful if you start getting really, really big. But the other thing that I want to do is like, okay, I am able to do this, but what if I had just kind of a general idea of what I want to have happen, but I'm not sure the combination of inputs and transformation operators and outputs that I want in order to get to a single table. We have within DBT this Copilot, right? And Copilot is going to be where you can actually just use their natural language and try to ask TBT to help you out. So if I go to Copilot, it little pops up and there's some example prompts that we have. But what I want to do is I want to ask it, I'm just copy and pasting the query that I have for them, is I want to combine stage orders, and this I can say that it's actually stage orders and reference that table within my model, and stage customers, and add a new column that calculates the total number of orders that a customer had over time. So I'm going to hit submit and let it think about it for a little bit. Oh, of course, got to do it again. Try this again. And there we go. Gotta love doing something live. Sometimes it just needs to wake up. So the SQL query then tells me what I want to do. So it's looking at and it's telling me the generation that it's doing. So it generated an input, two inputs, a couple of different operators, and an output. So here I'm going to hit apply and just see what it's going to suggest. And once I have that, I can see down here, I've got a couple of different options within me. It's saying, okay, this is what your original was, and this is what your new is. And you can say whether you want to accept these things or not. So I see I have my stage customers, and that's going to be joined. I've got my stage orders that's added an aggregate in order to do the total number of orders. It's even renamed that title. And then I've got my join, my little formula within here, and my output. And it even within the join was able to suggest what the combination should be. Like, what is my join key? And it's saying, hey, you have customer ID in both of these, so that's probably what you want to join. So I'm going to hit accept and say, yep, this is exactly what I want. And you can see now I have that within my canvas. So now I've got that, and I can go in and edit this as I want to. I can add more transformations back, whatever I might want to do. But this is just a nice way of being able to ask it to help you out in the building. If you really just have no idea how to even start, you can ask it to help it out. So Copilot is very, very helpful with that. So that we're talking about efficiency, again, another one, as well as that unifying language. So anybody who either can go from writing SQL to not being able to write SQL can start building within Canvas. But speaking of SQL, right, one of the things that we also need to make sure when we're talking about self-service analytics is, can I trust the data? Can I trust the process that's happening? And that's a big thing. Is like, how do I know this is doing what I want it to? I can see that this says it's a join and the join condition is ID to ID, but how do I make sure that that's actually what I want to be doing, especially with the aggregates and the formulas? Well, the other option we have at this is this option that says SQL. And when you click on that, what that does is it's showing what the actual SQL code that's being created by this canvas is. So it's a great way of being able to look at it, because the way that DBT Canvas works is all of this is just creating a SQL query that's being stored within your project. So it's going to keep up with that version control, being able to bring brought into Git. It can be tested, it can be looked at and audited, right? So even though it's got this nice visual component to it, it is all being realized within SQL, and that is just so helpful in development. So I can see here, it's got with my stage orders, and then it's got all the different little CTEs that we've got, right? Aggregate 1, where if I renamed this to be a different thing other than aggregate 1, then that would change the CTE name as well. But it's just showing you that this is the actual SQL query that's going to be written in the back end. So being able to look into that is just really great to just, again, peek behind the curtain and make sure what we're doing we can trust, because we trust SQL. The final thing about DBT Canvas, and it's again similar to the SQL action that we were just talking about, is the fact that while I went and started from scratch and I can do this, I can commit this, which is basically going to put it back into my project so that others can look at it and utilize it. But what also happens is I can look at something, say a coworker of mine has created a table that they're like, hey, this might actually be what you're looking for. They created it in SQL because they're just a SQL wizard, and I love that for them. But again, I'm a visual person, so I would like to be able to kind of like see it in this sort of aspect. You can also, within Canvas, here, if I go to add new model at the top, we did create a new model, but you can see there's edit existing model. And I have one open already for dim customers. I can look at somebody else's SQL code and I can use DBT Canvas to actually visualize it for me so I can understand what's going on. So here they did similar where they had the aggregate, but they had a couple of different things. So they did number of orders like I did, but they also decided to add in first order date, most recent order, and lifetime value, which I think would be very, very helpful for my cohort analysis. So I'm very appreciative of them for showing that to me. But this is something where if I look at the SQL, maybe if I looked at this, I would not necessarily like be able to understand what's happening immediately. So it's great to be able to actually visualize it within here. And what I can also do within here is I can edit things, right? This isn't hard coded. So I could go in and edit things if I wanted to, add in another transformation, whatever it might be, and I can commit it back. So then they can see the changes that I've made to the SQL. Because again, this all gets realized in SQL. So it's just been really, really helpful playing with Canvas, and understanding Canvas has just really opened a lot of doors when it comes to just making it so that we're all able to work to this together and get to our common goal. And so now I'm excited for Patrick to be able to show you a couple more of the options that have just come with DBT to make it even easier with insights and catalog.
All right, so I am a data analyst at Widgets Incorporated, and we sell widgets. We've been running a marketing campaign for the last 6 months, and I want to understand the impact that that's had on our top selling items. So my first question is, what data do I have available for this analysis? I can jump into our DBT catalog where I can browse through all of the assets across all of my DBT projects. I can browse through all of the assets from my data warehouse that DBT has scanned and ingested. I can jump into something that I've recently viewed, or I can browse by project. So depending on whether I kind of know what I'm looking for and I want to execute a keyword search, or I just want to browse through everything that's available, DBT helps me get started quickly. So I'm looking for data on sales, so I'm going to look for orders data. And then I noticed that the first three here kind of look the same. Which one is right? Well, I know that I'm in my data analytics project, and so I'm going to filter this down to just data from that project. And I want item data because I want to know what our top selling item was, and so I'm going to click on this one. Now, from here, how do I know that this data is right for my analysis? Well, you get all of the trust signals from DBT metadata out of the box. You can get the status of upstream sources. You can get the status of the last builds. You can see the status of the upstream sources. You can see if it has any tests configured, the status of those tests. If you want more information on the tests that we've run against this data, you can open up this pane here and click through to view more detail about the specific test that was run against this data. You can view the lineage, and so you can see which data assets were joined together to create this one. You can view the owner. And so all of this metadata helps me understand whether or not I should trust this data asset. I can also go in and view column level information. And so here it looks like the part key. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. And if I open up the dropdown, I can see column level lineage. And so I can see where this part key originated at source. I can see that it was renamed as part of this staging model. And then I can see that it was passed through from that staging model down to this fact order items model. And again, all this helps me build trust that not just the data asset, but the specific column that I want to use. I can view its source, and I can view that it's good quality. I can also see that this column is referenced in the data analytics project that our sales team manages. And so if it's good enough for the sales team, it's probably good enough for me. But as an analyst, I don't always trust data. Like this is great. These metadata signals are great, but like I don't trust it until I actually get my hands on it and see what's under the hood. And so with just a couple clicks here, I'm going to open this data set in our new Insights product to run an analysis. Now, Insights is going to pre-populate a query for me that I can just hit run. And if I have access to this data on the underlying warehouse, now I'll see this list of results. And so from here, I can see that, yeah, we got our order key, we got our order date, we got our part key, and this looks like the right data for my analysis. All right, so now I want to know which of these parts has been most ordered over the past 6 months. But I'm not great at SQL. I'm more of a business analyst kind of person, and so I'm going to call in Copilot for an assist. My top 10 best-selling parts for the last 6 months. And Copilot is going to have a think, and Copilot is going to give me a SQL query that I can then just replace in my editor. I can run this query, and now I can see the top 10 best-selling parts over the past 6 months. But I want to understand the kind of profile of sales as this marketing campaign's been going on. And so I'm just going to pick one, our best-selling part, 1983. And can you break down monthly sales of part three per month for the last 6 months? And so again, Copilot's going to have a think. It's going to give me another SQL statement that I can pop in there. And great. So we've got the order month, we've got the total quantity. And now if I want, I can jump in and create a chart. Um, I can make my x-axis my order month, my y-axis is the total quantity sold. I can give it a quick title. And great. I can take a screenshot of this. I can download this. I can download the results. And something else I can do is I can bookmark this. And so if I go to bookmark this query, create a title, I can generate a description. Great. Now that I've created this bookmark, I can actually go in and share this bookmark. I can copy this bookmark to the clipboard, and I can share this link with anybody on my team. They can receive this link in Slack, an email, they can click it, they'll come in, they will land directly on this page with this SQL statement already populated for them. And then if they have access to the underlying data, they can hit run and see these exact same results. Okay, that's what the experience looks like if you're starting from scratch and you don't know what data you should be using and you go through our catalog experience. Um, what happens if I just have a question and I want to ask the question? From the Insights home screen, I can either ask Copilot a question directly. I can start using a popular asset based on what other people on my team and my project have been using. I can review any of the bookmarks that I've saved, or I can jump back into my query history. Now, here you can see I've been kind of messing around with top 10 customers by recent revenue. And this is something that now my boss actually wants to materialize as a new table in the data warehouse. But I don't want to start from scratch. I've already written this query. Um, I've spent a lot of time on this query, and I don't want to lose that. And so from this screen, what I can do is just click this develop dropdown and open this query up in the low code, no code Canvas experience and do all of the great things that you saw Rachel demo already. Now, last thing. Um, if you are a customer of the DBT semantic layer, or if you're just curious about semantic layers and standardized business metrics in general, Catalog and Insights support those as well. So from the browse screen, I can look through all of the metrics that have been built in my project. And it looks like one of those metrics is average revenue per customer. That's a pretty common thing that you might want to standardize on. So as a user, I can jump in here. I can view any warnings about the state of this metric. I can view the lineage of this metric. I can see where it comes from. And again, with just a couple clicks, I can open this up in Insights to perform an analysis. Now here, it already pre-populates the query for me. I can run the query, and here we go. Now I have the average revenue per customer over time for the last 7 years. Um, what's cool about this is from the details screen, I can see the supplied SQL and I can see the compiled SQL. And so now I, as a user, can validate that the specific logic that is used to calculate this metric without any guesswork. And so if you are looking to standardize your business definitions, standardize the way that your metrics are calculated, this is a really great way to expose those things to your end users. All right, so you've seen how dbt now empowers analysts of all technical abilities to discover data, regardless of where it lives, to analyze that data using SQL, using AI, to build new assets on that data using a low-code, no-code drag and drop editor that goes through the exact same code review approval processes that you've configured as part of your dbt project. Um, and you've seen how you can bring your analytics teams closer to your engineering teams to create this self-service governed collaboration model. One of our early adopter customers, had this quote to say, "We're getting a ton of great feedback from the field about how these experiences are landing, and we're really excited about the product features, sure, but really the collaboration model of taking those engineering teams that for so long have felt like they're at odds with their analytics teams, and now bringing those people together to work together under the same heading and framework." So thank you so much for joining us today. Rachel, thank you for being here.
Yep. And I think Leah's just got a few follow-ups, and thank you all.
Thanks so much, Patrick and Rachel. Let's give it up for today's presenters. A round of applause. And thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. I've got some next steps here for you. So you can make DBT accessible to analysts today. Get them started with DBT Canvas, DBT Insights, and DBT Catalog. You can click the orange button in the top right-hand corner of Goldcast, and your account team will be in touch. You can also click that orange button to get a one-on-one DBT Cloud demo, meet about your specific use case, and get those questions answered. I'd like to invite y'all to join us for the next virtual event in this series. That's going to focus on how DBT's MCP server enables reliable real-world AI use cases. So you can register for that. We'll drop a link in the chat for you. And then we're about to launch our survey for today's session. We'd love for you to take that survey and get your thoughts on how to improve these sessions for y'all in the future. So thanks everyone so much for joining us today, and I hope that we will see you in July for the next virtual event in this series on DBT's MCP server. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye.